The call came at 6:30 on a Tuesday morning, jarring me from the first decent sleep I'd had in weeks. Eleanor's voice crackled through the phone, high and thin with pain. "Sarah, honey, I've fallen. I can't get up." I sat bolt upright in bed, my heart already racing. Tom was in the shower, and through the bathroom door, I could hear him humming some old Eagles song, oblivious to the crisis unfolding. Eleanor lived alone in her ranch house 15 minutes away, fiercely independent at 78 until this moment. "Don't try to move," I said, already throwing back the covers. "I'm calling 911 and coming right over." "No ambulance," she said firmly. "I just need help getting to my feet. My hip hurts something fierce, but I don't think anything's broken." I glanced at the bedside clock, calculating. Mom would be waking up soon, confused, and looking for breakfast. She'd been living with us for 8 months now, ever since the dementia made living alone impossible. Our morning routine was sacred coffee first, then her medications lined up in the little blue pill organizer, then toast, cut into triangles the way she liked. "Eleanor, I really think—" "Please, Sarah, I know you're busy with your mother, but Tom won't answer his phone and I can't reach the boys." Of course, she couldn't reach David and Michael. Tom's brothers lived in Seattle and Phoenix, respectively, close enough to visit for holidays, but far enough to avoid the daily grind of aging parents. That burden, as always, fell to the daughters-in-law. I heard Mom's bedroom door creak open down the hall, followed by her tentative voice. Helen, are you there?" Helen was my grandmother, dead for 15 years. Mom often woke up thinking she was a young woman again, looking for her mother in our hallway. "I'll be right over." I told Eleanor, then hung up and rushed to intercept Mom before she wandered into the kitchen and tried to cook something. Last week I'd found her trying to make coffee with dish soap, the bitter smell of suds filling the air like a warning. "I'm here, Mom," I said, gently taking her arm. "It's Sarah. Let's get you some breakfast." Her cloudy blue eyes searched my face. "Sarah, but you're supposed to be at school." "It's Tuesday, Mom. I'm 52 now, remember? Let me get you settled and I'll be right back." Tom emerged from the bathroom in his work clothes, knotting his tie. His dark hair was still damp, and he smelled like the expensive cologne our daughter Jess had given him for Christmas. "What's wrong?" he asked, seeing my face. "Your mother fell. I need to go check on her." His expression shifted to concern, but also something else, relief that I was handling it. "Should I call in late?" "No, I've got it," I said automatically, the words slipping out before I could think. "Just help me get Mum settled first." We moved through our practiced routine. Tom poured coffee while I arranged Mum's pills and started the toast. Mum sat at the kitchen table in her lavender robe, humming a tune I couldn't place. Her silver hair caught the morning light streaming through the window, and for a moment she looked almost like her old self, the woman who'd taught me to garden and bake, who'd held me when I cried over teenage heartbreak. "I had the strangest dream," she said, looking up at me with sudden clarity. "You were taking care of everyone, Sarah, but you were so tired. Your face was all drawn and pale." Tom and I exchanged glances. Sometimes Mom's observations cut right through the fog of her condition, sharp and true. "Just a dream, Mom," I said, kissing the top of her head. "I'm fine." But as I drove to Eleanor's house, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary, I wondered if Mom had seen something I'd been trying to ignore. The face in my bathroom mirror had grown thinner these past months, with dark circles that concealer couldn't quite hide. I'd stopped coloring my hair, letting the grey creep in at the temples, because there was never time for salon appointments. My friend Rita had mentioned it gently last week at book club, asking if I was feeling all right. Eleanor's front door was unlocked, as always. I found her sitting on the bathroom floor, her back against the tub, still wearing her pink nightgown. Her usually perfect silver curls were mussed, and her left leg was stretched out at an awkward angle. "Oh, honey, thank goodness," she said when she saw me. I was reaching for my reading glasses on the counter and just lost my balance. Happens to the best of us. I knelt beside her, noting the way she favored her left side. "Let's get you to urgent care. This could be serious." "It's just a bruise. Help me up and I'll make us some coffee." "Eleanor, you've been sitting here for who knows how long. You could have a fracture." "I know my own body, Sarah." We stared at each other for a moment, two stubborn women who'd been circling each other politely for 25 years of marriage to Tom. Eleanor had never quite approved of me, not wealthy enough, not cultured enough, not the doctor or lawyer she'd envisioned for her eldest son. But she'd softened over the years, especially after Jess was born. "Please," I said, "let me call Tom. He's got that important presentation today. Don't bother him with this." Of course she knew about Tom's schedule better than he did. Eleanor made it her business to know everything about her son's lives, filing away details like a secretary keeping important papers. "Then let me help you to the couch and we'll see how you feel." It took 15 minutes to get her upright and mobile. She was definitely hurting, wincing with each step, but her pride was intact. I settled her in the living room with ice and called urgent care to explain the situation. They could squeeze her in at 10:30. My phone buzzed with a text from Jess. "Mom, can you pick up the kids after school? Mark's lawyer moved our meeting to 4 p.m. and I can't reschedule again." I stared at the message, calculating. Mum's lunch was at noon, her afternoon meds at 2. If Eleanor needed x-rays or treatment, we could be at urgent care for hours. The kids, Emma 8 and Lucas 6, would need snacks and help with homework. Emma had been acting out since the divorce started, and Lucas had developed a stutter that broke my heart. "Of course," I texted back, because what else could I say? "Sarah," Eleanor called from the living room, "could you make some tea?" The Earl Grey is in the cabinet above the stove. I filled her kettle, my movements automatic. Eleanor's kitchen was the opposite of mine, pristine and organized with matching canisters and towels that never seemed to get dirty. A far cry from my chaotic space, where Mum sometimes hid her pills in the sugar bowl, and I found coffee mugs in the strangest places. "You know," Eleanor said when I brought her the tea, "I've been thinking about getting one of those medical alert systems, the ones with the buttons." "That's a great idea." I meant it, anything that might reduce the emergency calls. "But I hate the thought of strangers coming into my house. What if I just moved in with you and Tom for a while, just until this hip heals up?" The teacup rattled against the saucer as I set it down. "Eleanor, we don't really have the space. I could take the guest room. I know you're busy with your mother, but I wouldn't be any trouble. I could even help with her care. Help." As if caring for Mum was like tending a garden, where extra hands made the work lighter. Eleanor didn't understand that Mum needed routine familiarity calm. She didn't know about the midnight wandering, or the way Mom sometimes forgot how to use the toilet. She'd never seen Mom have a meltdown in the grocery store when the checkout line moved too slowly. "Let's see what the doctor says first," I said carefully. "Of course, dear. I'm just thinking ahead." My phone rang. Mom's day program director. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry to call, but your mother seems quite agitated today. She's asking for you repeatedly. We can manage, but I wanted you to know. I'll be there as soon as I can." I said, my chest tightening. Eleanor was watching me with sharp eyes. "Trouble with your mother. She has good days and bad days. Perhaps she'd do better in a facility. Tom and I were just discussing it last week." The words hit me like cold water. Tom had been discussing Mum's care with his mother, but not with me. I was the one managing doctor's appointments and insurance battles, the one dealing with confused 3 a.m. phone calls before Mum moved in with us. "Tom didn't mention that conversation," I said. "Oh, you know how men are. They don't like to worry us with details." Worry us, as if I weren't already drowning in details. "We should go," I said, gathering my keys. Urgent care gets busy. The morning stretched into afternoon in a series of waiting rooms and forms. Eleanor's hip was bruised but not fractured, though the doctor recommended a week of limited mobility and physical therapy. She seemed almost disappointed by the minor diagnosis, as if a broken bone would have justified more attention. "I suppose I could manage at home," she said as we walked slowly to my car. "But I do worry about falling again. We'll figure something out," I said, though I had no idea what. I dropped her off with a promise to check on her later, then rushed to pick up Mum from her program. She was sitting in the lobby, with her purse clutched in her lap, her face lighting up when she saw me. "There you are," she said, relief flooding her voice. "I thought you'd forgotten me." "I would never forget you, Mom." On the drive home, she was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the familiar neighborhoods. Then she said, "That woman this morning, the one on the phone, she's going to be trouble." Sometimes Mom's intuition cut through her confusion like a knife. We'd barely walked through the front door when Jess arrived with the kids. Emma ran to hug me, her backpack sliding off her shoulder, and spilling homework across the entry hall. Lucas hung back, sucking his thumb, a habit that had returned with his parents fighting. "Thanks, Mom," Jess said, already checking her phone. "I'll try to be back by 7, but you know how these lawyers are." "How are you holding up?" I asked, really looking at her. Jess had my brown eyes, but Tom's stubborn chin, and right now both looked strained. She'd lost weight since the separation started, her clothes hanging loose on her small frame. "Fine," she said automatically. "Kids be good for Grandma Sarah." And then she was gone, leaving me with 3 generations of needs converging in my kitchen. Mom was asking about lunch, Emma was announcing a school project due tomorrow, and Lucas was following me around like a lost puppy. "Grandma Sarah," Emma said, "can you help me make a volcano for science class?" "What kind of volcano, sweetheart?" "The exploding kind, with vinegar and stuff." I glanced at the clock. 2:15. Mom's medications were late, and I still needed to grocery shop for dinner. Tom wouldn't be home until after 6, and I'd promised to check on Eleanor. "Let's start with lunch," I said. "Then we'll see about that volcano." I made grilled cheese sandwiches on autopilot, cutting Mom's into triangles and removing the crusts from Lucas's. Emma chatted about her teacher and her friends, blissfully unaware of the tension radiating from the adults around her. Mom ate slowly sometimes, forgetting to chew, while Lucas picked at his food and practiced words under his breath. "Butterfly," he whispered. "Beautiful butterfly." "That's very good, Lucas," I said, my heart aching for him. After lunch, I settled Mom in front of her afternoon game shows and tried to help Emma with the volcano project. We spread newspaper across the kitchen table and mixed flour and salt for the dough, while Lucas built elaborate castles with Mom's pill organizers. "And Emma said suddenly, "Why is Daddy living in that apartment now?" I paused, my hands deep in the sticky dough. Jess had asked me not to discuss the divorce details with the kids, but Emma was too smart to accept vague answers much longer. "Sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out," I said carefully. "But you and Grandpa Tom live together." "We do. And you take care of great-grandma Margaret even when she's confused." Out of the mouths of babes. Emma was 8 years old and already understanding family loyalty better than some adults I knew. "Yes, we do. So why can't Mommy and Daddy figure it out while living together?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Eleanor. "Sarah, dear, I'm having trouble reaching the bathroom. Could you possibly come over for just a moment?" I looked around my kitchen, flower handprints on the cabinets. Mom dozing in her chair. Lucas still playing quietly with the pill organizers. Emma waiting for an answer about her parents' marriage that I didn't have. "I'll be there as soon as I can," I said. "Mom." Emma's voice was small. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired." But I wasn't fine. I was drowning, and the water was rising faster than I could bail it out. The next morning brought another crisis. I woke to find Mom standing in the kitchen at 5 a.m. fully dressed, but with her blouse buttoned wrong and her shoes on the wrong feet. She was trying to cook breakfast, but she'd put coffee grounds directly into the toaster. "Mum, what are you doing?" "Making breakfast for the children. They'll be hungry before school." "What children, Mum?" "Your children, Sarah, David and Michael." David and Michael were Tom's brothers, both in their 40s now. But in Mum's mind, she was apparently my mother-in-law preparing breakfast for my children. The confusion was getting worse. I gently led her back to her room and helped her dress properly, then cleaned the coffee grounds from the toaster while she watched with puzzled eyes. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "I'm being trouble, aren't I?" "You're not trouble, Mom. You're just a little confused this morning. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing," she whispered. "Like pieces of me are falling away and I can't catch them." I held her then, this woman who had raised me and loved me, and was now watching her own mind betray her piece by piece. Her body felt so small in my arms, fragile as tissue paper. Tom found us like that when he came down for coffee. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice still thick with sleep. "Just a confusing morning," I said. He nodded and kissed Mom's cheek. "How are you doing, Margaret?" "I'm fine, dear, just fine." At breakfast, Tom's phone buzzed with a text. He frowned as he read it. "Mom fell again last night," he said. "She's okay, but she thinks she should come stay with us for a few days." I felt the walls closing in. "Tom, we talked about this." I know. But she's scared, Sarah. She's never been scared before." "I'm scared too," I said quietly. He looked up from his phone, really seeing me for the first time in weeks. What do you mean? I mean, I'm already caring for Mom around the clock. I'm watching Jess's kids half the week while she deals with the divorce. I'm trying to keep everyone fed and medicated and safe, and I'm drowning. But Mum's trained in caregiving. She was a nurse for 30 years. She could actually help with your mother. Your mother. Not our mother, not family, your mother. As if Mom's care was my responsibility alone, because she was related to me by blood rather than marriage. Mom needs routine, Tom. She needs calm and predictability. Your mother means well, but she's used to being in charge. She'll want to reorganize our systems and question our approaches. You're being dramatic. Am I? When's the last time you gave Mom her medications? When's the last time you dealt with her wandering in the middle of the night, or cleaned up after she forgets how to use the bathroom? Tom's face flushed. I work 60 hours a week to keep this family afloat. Someone has to pay for all this care. And someone has to provide the care. That someone is always me. We stared at each other across the breakfast table, 25 years of unspoken resentments hanging in the air like smoke. Mom continued eating her toast, humming softly to herself, oblivious to the tension. I'll call in help, Tom said finally. We'll hire someone. With what money we're already stretched thin with Mom's medications and the day program. Then what do you suggest? I can't let my mother suffer, and I can't take on another person's care without losing my mind. But even as I said it, I knew I would give in. I always gave in. Tom would present it as a temporary solution. Eleanor would move in, just for a few days. And somehow, those days would stretch into weeks or months, while everyone adjusted to the new normal, everyone except me. That afternoon, while Mom napped and I tried to catch up on laundry, my neighbor Rita knocked on the door. She stood on my porch holding a covered casserole dish, her silver hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Rita was 62, a retired school principal who'd moved next door 3 years ago after her husband died. Thought you might be able to use this, she said, handing me the dish. Chicken and rice. Feeds about 6 people. Rita, you don't have to. Can I come in for a minute? I led her to the kitchen where she immediately began washing the dishes I'd left in the sink. Rita was like that, unable to sit still when there was work to be done. So, she said without preamble, I saw the ambulance at Eleanor's yesterday. She fell. Nothing serious, but she's shaken up. And I'm guessing she wants to move in here for a while. I nodded, surprised by her directness. Sarah, can I tell you something? When my mother-in-law went through this same thing 5 years ago, I nearly lost myself trying to keep everyone happy. Rita had never mentioned this before. In all our conversations over coffee or at book club, she'd never talked about caregiving struggles. What happened? Harold's mother was a lovely woman, but she was used to running her own household. She moved in after a fall, and within a week she was rearranging my kitchen and questioning my cooking and telling Harold I was giving her the wrong medications. How did you handle it? Rita dried her hands and turned to face me. I had a breakdown, right there in the produce section of Kroger. Started crying and couldn't stop. A kind stranger called Harold to come get me. I could picture it, Rita, always so composed and capable, falling apart among the vegetables. That must have been terrifying. It was a wake-up call. I realized I'd been so focused on taking care of everyone else that I'd forgotten to take care of myself. And you know what, nobody else was going to do it for me. So what did you do? I had a very difficult conversation with Harold. I told him that his mother could stay, but only if we hired daytime help and established clear boundaries about who was in charge of what. I also told him that if he wasn't willing to take on his fair share of the actual caregiving, not just the decision-making, but the daily work, then we needed to look at other options. How did he take it? Not well initially. He accused me of being selfish and cold-hearted, but I stood my ground. And you know what? After the initial shock, things got better. We found a wonderful aide who came during the day. Harold started taking over the evening medications, and his mother actually seemed happier, with more structure and professional care. I absorbed this thinking about Tom's reaction that morning. I don't know if I'm strong enough to have that kind of confrontation. Sarah, you're one of the strongest women I know. You've been caring for your mother with grace and patience while dealing with your daughter's divorce and your grandchildren's needs. But strength isn't just about enduring. It's also about knowing when to say enough. But Eleanor is family, and so are you. When did you become less important than everyone else you're caring for? Before I could answer, Mom's voice called from the living room. Sarah, where are you? I'm here, Mom, I called back. She sounds agitated, Rita observed. She gets confused when she wakes up from naps, disoriented. How often does this happen? Several times a day now. The doctor says it's normal progression, but it's getting harder to manage. Rita was quiet for a moment, then asked, What do you do for yourself, Sarah? What brings you joy? The question caught me off guard. Joy seemed like a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. I used to garden, I said finally. I had beautiful flower beds and a vegetable garden, but I haven't had time to maintain them this year. What else? I read, or I used to. I loved mysteries and historical fiction, but by the time everyone's settled for the night, I'm too tired to focus on a book. When did you last see a movie? Go out to dinner with Tom, have lunch with a friend. I couldn't remember. The days had blurred together into an endless cycle of meals and medications and small crises. Sarah, Rita said gently, you're disappearing. Just like you described your mother feeling pieces of you are falling away. Her words hit me like a physical blow because they were true. I'd been so focused on keeping everyone else whole that I'd forgotten I was allowed to exist as a complete person too. But if I don't take care of them, who will? There's a difference between taking care of people and taking responsibility for everything. You've been doing the second, and it's killing you. Mom appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair mussed from sleep and her sweater askew. Oh, she said, seeing Rita. I didn't know we had company. Hi, Margaret, Rita said warmly. How are you feeling? I'm fine, dear, just a little turned around. Sarah, could you help me find the bathroom? I started to get up, but Rita gestured for me to stay seated. Margaret, the bathroom is just down the hall. Remember the door with the little sign? Mom nodded and wandered off, and I realized Rita had helped, without taking over a skill I seemed to have lost. You set boundaries even in that small interaction, I observed. It takes practice, but Margaret is more capable than you think. When you do everything for her, you actually rob her of the chance to do things for herself. I'd never thought of it that way. In my effort to keep Mom safe and comfortable, had I been accelerating her dependence? Rita, can I ask you something? How do you say no to family without feeling guilty? Guilt is just a feeling, not a fact. The fact is that you matter too. Your health matters, your marriage matters, your own children, and grandchildren need you to be whole, not exhausted. That evening, Tom came home to find Eleanor sitting in our living room with 2 suitcases. He'd apparently stopped by her house after work and decided without consulting me that she should move in immediately. Just until we can set up some home care for her, he said when I pulled him aside in the kitchen. You didn't ask me. I didn't think I needed to ask. She's my mother, and this is my home. Our home. The place where I'm already caring for my mother full-time. Eleanor's voice carried from the living room where she was trying to engage Mom in conversation. Margaret, dear, you're looking well. How are you feeling? I'm fine, Mom answered, but I could hear the confusion in her voice. I was just telling Tom that you might benefit from a more structured environment. Have you considered Sunrise Manor? It's a lovely facility. I felt my blood pressure spike. Eleanor had been in our house for 30 minutes and was already suggesting that Mom be moved to memory care. She's trying to help, Tom said quietly. She's trying to take over. You're being paranoid. That night, I lay awake listening to the sounds of too many people in too small a space. Eleanor had taken the guest room, which meant Mom's overnight aide couldn't stay if we needed her. Mom was restless, calling out several times, and I heard Eleanor's door open each time, her voice joining the confusion. Margaret, dear, you need to go back to bed. It's night time. Who are you? Mom asked, her voice frightened. I'm Eleanor, Tom's mother, remember? But Mom didn't remember, and the strange voice in the hallway only increased her agitation. I got up to intervene, finding Mom standing in her nightgown, clutching her robe and looking terrified. Sarah, she said when she saw me, who is this woman? Why is she in our house? This is Eleanor, Mom. She's staying with us for a few days. I don't like her, Mom whispered loudly. She smells funny and she keeps moving my things. Eleanor had indeed rearranged the bathroom, moving Mom's special toothbrush and putting the towels in a different place. Small changes that probably seemed helpful to her, but were devastating to someone whose world depended on sameness. It's okay, Mom. Let's get you back to bed. As I settled Mom in her room, I heard Eleanor in the hallway talking to Tom in stage whispers. I'm just saying she's clearly declining. This level of confusion isn't normal aging. You might want to consider your options before it gets worse. Your options, as if Tom would be the one researching facilities and coordinating care and dealing with insurance companies. The next morning brought the volcano science project crisis. Emma's volcano was due today, and we'd only made the basic structure. We still needed to mix the chemicals and practice the eruption, but Mom was having one of her difficult mornings, refusing to get dressed and insisting she needed to call her mother. Great-grandma, Emma said patiently. Your mommy died a long time ago, remember? Don't be silly, Mom snapped. My mother is waiting for me. She'll be worried. Eleanor inserted herself into the conversation. Margaret, perhaps you'd like some nice oatmeal for breakfast. That might help clear your head. I don't want oatmeal. I want to go home. This is your home now, dear. No, it's not. My home has blue shutters and a garden with roses. This isn't my house. I was trying to help Emma gather her volcano supplies while mediating between Mom and Eleanor, and I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the feeling of being pulled in too many directions at once. Mom, I said to Eleanor, could you let me handle this? Mom responds better to familiar routines. Of course, dear. I was just trying to help. But she didn't leave. She hovered in the kitchen, making little suggestions and adjustments, moving the coffee pot, and reorganizing the spice rack, while I tried to manage the morning chaos. Emma, let's test that volcano quickly before school, I said. Can Great-Grandma watch? Emma asked. I'm not great anything, Mom said irritably. I'm only 45 years old. We mixed the vinegar and baking soda in the kitchen sink, Emma delighted by the foaming eruption. Mom watched with interest, her confusion temporarily forgotten in the face of such obvious magic. That's wonderful, sweetheart, she said to Emma. How does it work? Eleanor couldn't resist explaining the chemical reaction in detail, using terms that went over Emma's head and made Mom look even more confused. I bit my tongue and drove Emma to school, leaving Tom to manage the two grandmothers. When I returned, I found Eleanor organizing Mum's medications on the kitchen counter. Sarah dear, I think there might be some confusion with Margaret's pills. Some of these prescriptions seem duplicated. They're not duplicated. She takes different dosages at different times. But this could be dangerous. I really think you should check with her doctor. I took a deep breath, remembering Rita's words about boundaries. Eleanor, I appreciate your concern, but I've been managing Mum's medications for months. Her doctor and I have this under control. I just think a fresh pair of eyes. No, the word came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't take it back. Eleanor blinked, surprised by the directness. I'm sorry if I've overstepped, she said stiffly. You haven't overstepped, but this is my area of responsibility, and I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. For the rest of the morning, Eleanor was cool but polite, making pointed comments about different approaches to caregiving and the importance of professional oversight. By lunchtime, I was ready to scream. The breaking point came that afternoon. I was helping Mom with a shower when I heard Eleanor on the phone in the living room. Yes, this is Eleanor Patterson calling about my daughter-in-law's mother, Margaret Wilson. I'm concerned about the level of care she's receiving. My blood turned to ice. She was calling Mom's doctor without my permission. I quickly finished helping Mom dry off and dress, then marched into the living room. May I ask who you're calling? I was just checking on Margaret's medical care. I have some concerns. Hang up the phone. Excuse me. Hang up the phone right now. Eleanor stared at me, the receiver still in her hand. Sarah, I'm just trying to... You're trying to go behind my back and undermine my authority as Mom's caregiver. Hang up the phone or I will. She hung up, her face flushed with indignation. I was simply being proactive. You were being manipulative. You have no right to call Mom's doctor without my permission. I have every right to be concerned about a family member's welfare. You have the right to express concerns to me or to Tom. You don't have the right to make phone calls about my mother's medical care. We stood facing each other in the living room, years of polite restraint finally cracking. Eleanor's mouth was set in a thin line, and I could see the calculation in her eyes, how to regain control of this situation. Perhaps, she said carefully, we should discuss alternative care arrangements for Margaret. This level of confusion requires professional management. The only alternative care arrangement we need to discuss is finding you somewhere else to stay. Sarah. Tom's voice came from the doorway. He was home early, his face flushed from hurrying up the front steps. What's going on? Your mother was calling my mother's doctor without permission, trying to interfere with her medical care. I was expressing legitimate concerns, Eleanor said, turning to Tom with wounded dignity. Margaret is clearly declining, and Sarah seems overwhelmed. I thought professional input might be helpful. She's not overwhelmed, Tom said automatically, then looked at me more closely. Are you? It was such a simple question, but it opened something in my chest that I'd been keeping locked tight for months. Yes, I said quietly. I am overwhelmed. I'm drowning, actually. And instead of helping your mother is making everything harder. Now, Sarah, Eleanor began. No. Let me finish. I turned to face both of them. I've been caring for Mom around the clock for 8 months. I manage her medications, her appointments, her daily care, her confusion, her fears. I also help with Emma and Lucas 3 days a week, while Jess deals with her divorce. I keep this house running, cook the meals, do the shopping, handle the insurance battles. Tom opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. I do all of this because I love our family. But I can't do it alone anymore, and I can't do it while someone else undermines my decisions and questions my competence. I never questioned your competence, Eleanor said. You reorganized Mum's bathroom, moved her medications, called her doctor without permission, and suggested she be moved to memory care, all in less than 24 hours. How is that not questioning my competence? I was trying to help. You were trying to take control. There's a difference. Tom looked between us, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. Mom, maybe you could stay with David for a few days. David's family is too busy, Eleanor said quickly. Besides, I thought I could be useful here. You could be useful, I said, but only if you respect the systems that are already in place and follow my lead on Mom's care. Your lead? Yes, my lead. I'm the primary caregiver. I make the decisions about her daily care, and if you can't accept that, then you can't stay here. Eleanor's eyes flashed. I raised 4 children and worked as a nurse for 30 years. I think I know something about caring for people. I'm sure you do, but this is my house and Mum is my responsibility. If you want to help, you'll do it my way. And if I don't, then you'll need to find somewhere else to stay. The silence stretched between us, thick with tension. Mom wandered into the room, drawn by the raised voices. Is everything all right? She asked, looking from face to face. Everything's fine, Mom. I said, my voice immediately gentler. You're all talking very loudly. It's upsetting. She was right. The conflict was exactly the kind of disruption that made Mom's confusion worse. I felt a familiar stab of guilt for letting the situation escalate. I'm sorry, Margaret, Eleanor said. We were just having a discussion. I don't like discussions, Mom said firmly. They make my head hurt. Why don't you sit down and I'll make you some tea, I suggested. That would be nice, but not from her. Mom pointed at Eleanor. She makes it wrong. Eleanor's face crumpled slightly. She was trying to help, and my mother had just rejected her efforts in the most direct way possible. I'll make the tea, Mom, I said. While I was in the kitchen, I heard Tom and Eleanor talking in low voices. I couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the tone, Eleanor explaining her position, Tom trying to mediate. When I returned with Mom's tea, they both looked up with carefully neutral expressions. Mom's going to call David, Tom said. See if she can stay there for a few days while we figure things out. I think that's best. I said, though I felt no satisfaction in the victory. Eleanor spent the evening packing her bags with wounded dignity, making pointed comments about some people's inability to accept help and the importance of family loyalty. Tom tried to smooth things over, assuring her that this was just temporary, that we'd work something out. But I knew better. Eleanor and I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She would never forgive me for asserting authority over her, and I would never trust her to respect my boundaries again. That night, after Eleanor had left for David's house in Seattle, Tom and I had our own confrontation. You didn't have to be so harsh, he said as we got ready for bed. Yes, I did. She was undermining me at every turn. She was trying to help. She was trying to take over. There's a difference, Tom. He sat on the edge of the bed, his shoulders slumped. I just don't know what to do anymore. Mom's scared to be alone. Your mother needs constant care. Jess is falling apart and you're... He trailed off. I'm what? You're angry all the time. I'm not angry. I'm exhausted. You seemed pretty angry today. Because nobody listens to me. I've been telling you for months that I need help, that I can't manage everything alone. But instead of getting me support, you brought me another person to care for. She could have helped, not the way she was going about it. Tom, when's the last time you gave Mom her medications? I don't know the routine, because you've never learned it. When's the last time you handled one of her confused episodes at night? You're better with her. I'm better with her because I do it every night. You could learn. I work long hours. And managing Mom's care is a full-time job. Plus, I'm helping with the grandkids. Plus, I'm trying to keep our household running. I never asked you to do all that. You didn't have to ask. You just assumed I would, and I did because that's what wives and daughters do, right? We take care of everyone. Sarah, no, listen to me. Your mother was right about one thing. I am overwhelmed. But the solution isn't to put Mom in memory care or have Eleanor take over. The solution is for this family to step up and share the responsibility. What do you want me to do? I want you to learn Mom's medication schedule. I want you to take over her nighttime routine 2 nights a week so I can get uninterrupted sleep. I want you to research respite care options and help me implement them. And if I do all that, then we can figure out how to help your mother without sacrificing my sanity. We stared at each other in the dim light of our bedroom, 25 years of marriage, condensed into this moment of truth. I didn't realize, Tom said finally. I know you didn't, but I'm telling you now. The next few weeks were rough. Tom tried to help with Mom's care, but he was clumsy and uncertain, asking me constant questions that defeated the purpose of giving me a break. Mum was confused by the change in routine and often refused to cooperate with Tom's attempts to help her. I want Sarah, she would say when he tried to give her evening medications. Sarah's resting, I can help you. No, I want Sarah. And I would hear this exchange from my bedroom, knowing that getting up to intervene would undermine Tom's authority and my own rest. It was harder to let him struggle than to just do it myself, but slowly things began to improve. Tom learned Mom's routines and developed his own gentle way of redirecting her confusion. We hired a respite care aide for Saturday afternoons, giving me 4 precious hours to do whatever I wanted. Often, I just napped or sat in my neglected garden pulling weeds and thinking. Eleanor returned from Seattle with a different attitude. She'd apparently had several difficult conversations with David and his wife about her future care needs, and the reality of aging had hit her hard. I owe you an apology, she said when she called a few weeks later. I was scared and trying to feel useful, but I handled it all wrong. You don't need to apologize, I said, though I appreciated hearing it. Yes, I do. I undermined your authority in your own home, and that was wrong. If you're willing to try again, I'd like to help, but on your terms. We worked out a new arrangement. Eleanor moved into a senior apartment complex 10 minutes away, but she came over 2 mornings a week to sit with Mom while I ran errands or attended appointments. She followed my systems and routines without question, and slowly a grudging respect developed between us. You're good at this, she told me one afternoon as she watched me guide Mom through a confused episode with patience and humor. I've had practice. No, it's more than that. You have a gift for making people feel safe when they're scared. Coming from Eleanor, who'd been a professional nurse, that meant something. The real test came in November, when Mom had a medical crisis. She developed pneumonia and had to be hospitalized for a week. I practically lived at the hospital, sleeping in the bedside chair and advocating for her care with doctors and nurses, who sometimes treated her as if her dementia made her less deserving of attention. Tom took time off work to help manage the crisis. Eleanor showed up with homemade soup and offers to stay with Mom so I could go home and shower. Jess, who was finally finding her footing after the divorce settlement, took Emma and Lucas for the week so I could focus on Mom's care. We're a team, Tom said one evening as we sat in the hospital cafeteria, both of us exhausted but functioning. Finally, I said, Mom recovered from the pneumonia, but the episode had weakened her significantly. Her confusion increased and she needed more help with basic activities like dressing and bathing. The doctors suggested it might be time to consider memory care not as a criticism of my caregiving, but as a recognition that Mum's needs were growing beyond what home care could safely provide. "What do you think?" Tom asked after we'd toured 3 facilities. "I think Mum deserves dignity and safety, whatever that looks like." We chose Sunrise Manor, the same facility Eleanor had mentioned months earlier. But now it felt like our choice made with love and careful consideration rather than defeat or external pressure. Moving Mom was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. She was confused and frightened, clinging to me, and asking why I was leaving her with strangers. "I'm not leaving you, Mom. I'm making sure you're safe and cared for. I'll visit every day." "Promise?" "Promise." And I did visit every day, at least for the first month. I learned the staff's names and Mum's new routines. I advocated for her needs and celebrated small victories: the day she remembered the activities director's name, the afternoon she laughed at a silly song during music therapy. Gradually, Mum settled into her new environment. The structure and professional care actually seemed to help her confusion, and she developed friendships with other residents. She still had bad days, but she also had good ones, and I wasn't carrying the full weight of her care alone anymore. "How are you doing?" Rita asked one afternoon as we worked in my garden together, restoring the flower beds I'd neglected for so many months. "Better," I said, feeling surprised that it was true. "You look better, less fragile." I thought about that word as I dug my hands into the soil, feeling the earth under my fingernails for the first time in months. I had been fragile, stretched so thin I was ready to snap. But somehow, by setting boundaries and asking for help, and accepting that I couldn't do everything perfectly, I'd become stronger. "I learned something important," I said. "What's that?" "That saying no to some things gives you the strength to say yes to what really matters." Rita smiled and handed me a bulb to plant. "What really matters?" I looked around at my yard, slowly returning to life. Inside the house, Tom was helping Eleanor set up a new computer so she could video chat with David's family. Later, we'd drive to the facility to have dinner with Mom and maybe play a hand of cards. This weekend, Emma and Lucas would come over to help me plant spring flowers, and we'd probably end up making cookies and reading stories. "This," I said, gesturing at the ordinary magic of an autumn afternoon. "All of this, but in a way that doesn't destroy me to give it." That evening, as Tom and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, he reached over and took my hand. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For fighting for us. For not letting us all disappear into our separate crises." "I had to fight for me first," I said. "I couldn't save anyone else until I learned that I was worth saving too." We sat quietly as the light faded 2 people who'd been married for 25 years and were finally learning how to be partners, instead of just roommates sharing responsibilities. It wasn't perfect. There were still difficult days and moments of conflict, but it was real. The next morning brought a phone call from Jess. She'd been offered a promotion at work, a position that would require some travel, but would significantly improve her financial stability. "I want to take it," she said, "but I'm worried about asking you to watch the kids more often." 6 months ago, I would have automatically said yes, then resented the additional burden. Now I paused to consider what I could realistically offer. How much additional care are we talking about, son? Maybe 1 overnight trip per month plus occasional late days. I can do 1 overnight if we plan it in advance, and it doesn't conflict with my other commitments. For late days, we might need to look into after-school care on those days. Really, you'd consider that? Jess, I love you and the kids, but I also have my own limits. If we're honest about what I can offer, we can make it work. Mom, I'm so proud of you. For what? For knowing your worth, for teaching me that it's okay to have boundaries. Later that week, Eleanor called with news that she'd signed up for a senior hiking group and was considering getting a small dog for companionship. I realized I was putting too much pressure on the family to meet all my social needs, she said. It wasn't fair to any of us. Even Mom seemed to benefit from the family's new dynamics. During my visits, she often talked about feeling safer and less worried. I used to worry that I was too much trouble, she said one afternoon as we worked on a jigsaw puzzle together. But now I know I'm where I belong. The truth I'd learned was simple but profound. You can't pour from an empty cup, and trying to do so hurts everyone you're attempting to serve. Learning to say no to some things allowed me to say yes with my whole heart to what truly mattered, but only once I accepted that my own well-being was part of what mattered. This is a dramatized story, created for entertainment and inspiration, not medical, legal, or financial advice.